my calculations are correct, when this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious It has begun!
The Enrichment Center is required to remind you that you will be baked, and then there will be cake.
Program complete. Enter when ready.
It's time for the week's latest news in tech, gaming, movies, TV, and all things geeky. Welcome to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions.
Welcome, everybody, to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions. Once on Radio SLCC, but unfortunately for the people who followed us there, it no longer... The time frame doesn't really work for us, so we're actually going to be moving now to Google Hangouts. And obviously, to the people who are just joining us brand new, first of all, hello, new people! We like you! To the people who are new here, this is Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions. So we talk about all things geeky when it comes to gaming, when it comes to movies, TV, comics, whatever we find to be a geeky story, we'll bring it up and we go through the week's news. And I think as long as this time slot works, then we'll work this out on Google Plus and YouTube from here on in. But let me go ahead and introduce myself. I am your host, Adam Mickelson, and I'm just the guy who sits here and laughs at everything and curses Michael Bay whenever I get an opportunity, because it's awesome to do that. But I'm also being joined by a panel of three others, so let's go ahead and introduce them. First of all, here is Aldo Gomez, also known as Board Offline on YouTube. How are we doing tonight, Aldo?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Adam? I'm doing fantastic. I don't know why I'm asking you, because you already told us how.
I don't know.
How are you doing?
I'm tired, just because I decided to give myself a couple of days off, and it's been great, but I decided to give myself work while having days off. I don't think I thought that one through.
How does that even work?
Well, by work I mean level grinding, so that's just the way it goes. I am also being joined by the Shadowblazer 3000 on YouTube, also known as Alex Short. How are we doing, Alex?
I'm doing fairly well. I'm a little tired. It's been a little long Saturday night for working and everything else, but happy to be here.
Awesome. All right. And then also we are being joined by Stephen Romney, also known as Studio Ghost or Romney's Reviews. How are we doing tonight, Romney?
Well, pretty good. Thumbs up to any Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions viewers who know who this character is.
It's like it's staring into my soul.
Bonus points if you can name the anime and the scene this is actually occurring in. And unfortunately, we'll have to bid farewell to this character, and you'll have to look at my face from now on.
Oh, no, this is actually better. Because it's not as creepy. I'm sorry, dude.
Oh,
that
give it time.
Is creepy.
Give it time.
All right, so let's go ahead and start off with the Tech Hour. We usually do this in kind of a 2-hour broadcast, and we start off with a Tech Hour or an Entertainment Hour. It really just kind of gets interchanged. Tonight, we're starting with the Tech Hour, and let's go ahead and get into the first story. Now, these are going to be provided by the panel, as well as if people want to make suggestions, they can go to geekyweek@gmail.com to suggest the stories, and we are more than happy to get your feedback on some of the stuff that you think we have to cover.
Also, Twitter and Facebook page.
So, yes, or follow the Twitter or like the Facebook page. We would love to hear from you guys. So let's go ahead and get into the first story, which was actually offered by Alex, I think it was, from Anime News Network, from President Iwata. This is another trope of ours, guys. We like to get into the Nintendo talk. It just
We're all
happens.
Nintendo fanboys.
Yes, we are all Nintendo fanboys. Some of us more than others. And Sega fanboy. So President Iwata came out and basically brought up the idea of considering region-free consoles. That's an interesting take. I didn't think you could do that just given how the hardware is built, but if we actually had a region-free thing, that might be an awesome concept. I don't know. What are people thinking about it thus far?
Well, personally, as someone who at least likes to import certain games, I can even pull them off my shelf to show you what kinds I like to bring in. But if someone who likes to import, say, Ostatake Owendon, for example, and you want to play them on the console you currently own instead of having to get a Japanese system, then that's a good thing. I mean, the previous Nintendo DS was region-free, and so that's how I was able to play the Owendon games, a couple of Kamen Rider games. Basically, I kind of went down the list of the late Juarios. You can play this roster, and basically, I'm pretty excited for this prospect, knowing that Nintendo's going to actually relent and thus allow us importers to purchase the games that we actually want to play, but may not necessarily do well with the localized version.
See, the thing that actually kind of worried me about this is I remember like having to put chips into other consoles in order to get the region lock out so that you could play European and you could play Japanese games. So that's why I'm kind of worried about it. I thought it was too built into the consoles, especially now, where they're trying to make these consoles like hacker-proof on whether or not we can even go there. Can we? I mean, I gotta think there's built-in hardware limitations.
It is part of the hardware, and I do think it is built in. I don't know the exact specifics on it, but I do know it's not that like new of a console because the PS3 is region free, or I think has region free games.
Oh, okay.
Or stuff like the J-Stars Victory, Ultra, some of the stuff like
like Super Robot Tyson or JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle,
all of those games I could import them and play on my American PS3. I think the biggest difference is... What's up?
Should I go ahead? Okay. The way Sony actually does it is they themselves don't put on region restrictions. They leave it up to the developer to make that decision. So I think that's what Nintendo could do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you were saying something, Aldo, or?
Oh yeah, no, I was just gonna say that those games are games I could import and just play them on the American PS3. But I think the biggest difference comes from PAL regions and NTSC regions, and I think that is a difference in not just the actual hardware of the component, but actual television hardware and how it's broadcasted and how it works essentially.
Okay. Now Iwata is actually being quoted as basically saying there would be advantages for both Nintendo and consumers if the region locking was removed, but that unlocking the regions would lead to more issues that Nintendo would have to resolve. And that's one of the things I'm kind of worried about, is that we get errors, we get problems, and therefore some of the online functionality would suffer from it, especially right now where their biggest games are online functional. So I don't know. I don't see this happening this generation. If it's considered for maybe the next one, I would be a little bit more optimistic about that one, but that's just me.
Well, it's probably more reasonable that it's probably something to look forward to for next gen, or possibly, I don't know, given that we've possibly got the new 3DS being released, although it's only been released so far in Japan and Australia, if that's something that they're going to implement in the new model of 3DS that's supposed to have the improved specs, that could be one way they could implement it. But with the Wii U, it's already too late to implement it with the Wii U unless you want to try putting in some sort of patch or something. So it's probably either going to be next gen. I'm guessing maybe they might test the waters with the new 3DS if they decide to bring it to the US.
Mm-hmm. That'd be my guess. So I think that's pretty much covered things for this story. So let's go ahead and get into the next one, which is actually another Nintendo one. So we'll just keep the Nintendo talk a-going. So I don't know if you guys noticed, but we had some sales figures come out for Nintendo, and the Wii U sales are up. The 3DS sales are down. That's a little bit surprising.
That is surprising.
That actually
not exactly.
It surprised me a little bit. Well, and for some reason it decided to. Oh man, I hate it when that
happens. People.
There we go, muting. Okay, so yeah, apparently a number of interesting figures were revealed in the accompanying report, including the news that 610,000 units Wii U consoles were sold during that during the period between July and September. So obviously the Super Smash Bros. Hype got in, and people want to get Smash for the Wii U. So that's a good sign. But I also am kind of hoping that part of that is Hyrule Warriors hype. Part of that is also like Captain Toad hype, Splatoon hype, but I think it's too soon to tell. All we know is that a bunch of Wii U's were bought. It's just surprising that the 3DS is down when they had a bunch of 3DS announcements in the coming months.
Yeah, but I'm not particularly surprised that the 3DS is down because it had a really strong launch, and so it's probably just more of a case of, well, a lot of people have already bought it already. And
That could be it.
And people could also probably be waiting until they say, oh, we're going to release the new 3DS that has the second analog stick. That could be something that people are waiting to hear confirmation about, which that could be a factor as well, is that people are basically holding off on buying the new 3DS, or maybe even buy. Does it count the 2DS in those sales figures? Does it say in the article at all?
I couldn't see that it was specifically counting 2DS figures, but I do know, like, if you've seen recently, they are going to release a bunch of new color configurations for the 2DS, so I would think that the 2DS is doing fairly well in the US, because that's coming to the US. We're getting, like, I think it was a red and a white one.
I see. Because I know that they've also got like the NES variant of the 3DS XL that's also been talked about a little bit on places like PlayAsia. So it's probably just more of a case of either A, a lot of people already have a 3DS, and so it's kind of a case of when everybody has a 3DS, nobody's really buying it. 2, they may be waiting for whether or not they're going to release the new 3DS. And 3, maybe it's just people are waiting kind of for more high-profile releases. I mean, yeah, we've already had Smash Brothers come out for the 3DS, but there aren't really that many major high-profile titles coming for the console. Just mainly a lot of niche stuff like Persona Q.
Oh, yeah, Pokemon coming real soon.
Yeah, you got Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, but I can't really think of any major 3DS titles coming out, at least until next year. I know Bravely Second is set for next year, I think. Isn't that right, Al?
Yeah, it's set for 2015. I don't think Pokemon would move consoles as much with the remakes, considering that I feel like the consoles that did move, it already did it with X and Y.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah.
And the bank app, probably. Yeah, so I agree with that concept, but I love the fact that I actually did see some Nintendo fanboys come out and just scream, "Oh my gosh, it's the end of the 3DS! The iPhone's beating it!" No, guys,
No.
it's not. It really isn't. I agree with Romney here. It's that we have 3DSs at this point, so it's not really that new ones can be given. And for some reason, this thing will not shut up. I don't know why.
Well, I think that raises
We're not us, guys. We're trying to get this to work.
What do you guys think about this concept I've seen buzzing around, that perhaps the 3DS could be the last of the handheld consoles as we know it, because phones have become so hot and popular?
I doubt it, because personally, just speaking as a gamer, there's always going to be a market for a dedicated handheld games console, because phones can do quite a bit nowadays, but it's kind of to take a phrase from Koji Igarashi, who was programmed Castlevania, because people thought the same thing with PCs and computers, but really, it's always best to kind of have a dedicated games machine, one that's meant to be played games on, because say you have a phone and you've got all these different apps, or say you're playing a PC but you have all these other stuff open, it can slow things down and just not make the experience all that fun. So I highly doubt that we're going to see portable consoles going away within the next few years or so, because that wouldn't make a lot of sense. And there's always going to be an audience, those of us who want dedicated games consoles, who don't want to fall into the trap of having the smartphones glued to our hands on a regular basis.
Well, and the other problem is also that the 3DS's successor has already been announced. The Nintendo Fusion got announced earlier this year, so we know that at least the 3DS has a successor.
Really? Because I thought the Fusion was just a rumor at this point, because it was kind of a rumor that was being floated around back when the Wii U wasn't doing so well.
It's been bounced back and forth. I know it didn't make a presence at E3 when it got unveiled earlier than year, but here's the weirdest part about it, and this is why I think maybe they've stepped back on the matter, is it was supposed to be both the 3DS and the Wii U successor. And that's a weird concept for anybody to take in, because it's like, okay, how is that going to work? And
well, they kind of did it with the Dreamcast when you think about it, because of the memory card that allowed you to play games on the little VMU unit. So it's not a completely far-fetched concept.
It's like a symbiotic relationship, better implemented with the Vita and the PS4, where you can save your game and you can take it on your Vita, or you can even use your Vita as a controller.
Yeah, because I know with PlayStation Battle Royale, like PlayStation All-Stars Battles Royale, that was a major feature that a lot of players used, that those who had it on the Vita and those who had it on the PS3 could play against each other at the same time, which is something that would have been really good for the current iteration of Smash Brothers, being able to play on your 3DS against somebody who's playing on a Wii U.
All I remember from the actual piece of hardware that's shown to us is it did have like multiple ports, and one of them was really weird. It had a coax port, and I think that actually would step it backwards a little bit. But again, they've stepped back on this matter. I still think that maybe they're working on it, but right now they're more focused on trying to get the Wii U sold and the 3DS sold, especially with Smash out.
I also don't see any evidence that we'll be losing portable consoles, especially. I mean, I don't think so. I don't think it'd be wise for Sony to release another one. But the 3DS sales have been fantastic. Game sales are fantastic. Stuff like Fire Emblem Awakening, which was expected to sell like 25,000 pieces, sold over 2 million. So
Yeah.
I don't think there's any evidence pointing that we'll be losing.
If anything, one of the things that comes to my mind is just given this current console generation, we're seeing a lot more functionality between the main console and the handheld console. That's where I see the parts broadening, is that we actually will probably, with Nintendo, see handheld functionality with the main console. They're already talking about implementing it. And obviously the PS4 and the Vita were built side by side so that they could do it. That's where I see a lot of this going. I might be wrong about it, but yeah, I don't see the handheld console going away. Not in favor of phones, especially considering, Alex, that the handheld gaming consoles have way more power than the Android and the iPhone.
I think the ultimate rebuttal to the notion of phones overtaking handheld consoles, the N-Gage. That pretty much just says it right there. Nobody wanted to buy an N-Gage. My camera just cut out, so I'll have to put Polnareff back on, unfortunately.
I think part of that also comes from I don't know how to phrase it. Never mind. Forget I said anything.
I mean, here's the problem with that too is, like I said, it takes a lot more power for a gaming handheld console than it does for the phones. So where Angry Birds works on an iPhone or a Galaxy phone, I don't think you would ever get like a full-on 3D Castlevania game or a Mario game on there. I think you will always have, at least in Nintendo's case, until they bite the dust eventually. They're going to be fighting for their handheld consoles to rule.
Yeah, and even then, it's like, and a lot of people think, oh yeah, well, phones replace consoles, and not even just handhelds, but even home-based consoles. That's even just kind of the same case. Like with the way games are designed on mobile phones, and if anybody who's seen Matt Pat's video talking about kind of the addiction of mobile games, the design of a mobile phone game just isn't conducive to a hardcore experience.
No, it really isn't. I mean, the phone game market, as a person who plays them, they really are built for one simple concept: get in for 10 minutes and get out. It's not built to be like long gaming sessions like, say, a Pokemon game is. So that's one of the downsides to that. I think we've kind of hammered this plenty, but yeah, I don't see handheld gaming consoles going away, Alex. I don't think they're going anywhere, especially with Nintendo owning that market. So the next one, this is a fun story, at least as far as I am concerned, because I love it when the devs come out and help the gaming community. And so we actually had an interesting story come from BioWare and the Mass Effect team, if you guys have the story up.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that I think it was a couple of years ago, we had people approach Valve and ask, can you make like a specific level that the person I want to ask to marry can go through, and it's really complicated, and at the end you get the big reveal of the question. Mass Effect basically did the exact same thing. So I don't have her last name, but basically somebody wanted to, or a woman wanted to ask her girlfriend to marry her, and contacted BioWare because she wanted them to create a level for her to be able to do that. And BioWare just wholeheartedly jumped on board. They wanted to be a part of that. And they actually invited them out to the Montreal headquarters. And they did the whole song and dance. So they let them go into a private testing room. They had built a level for the new Mass Effect for this woman to play. And she got to play full access and all that stuff, and she even had developers kind of huddling over her, taking notes, as if they were really interested in her testing. And at the very end of the level, I also love this. They actually sent an invitation to them via Google or whatever, Day with Our Devs. And at the end of the level, the couple's pet names were spray painted in on a wall 50 foot high in graffiti, and when Amy clicked on the console in the center of the room, a message popped up. Dear Amy, Jackie would like to ask you something, and she's right next to her, love all of us at BioWare, and she proposed. And we even have a picture of that, and it's awesome. I love it when devs come out and do this kind of thing for the gaming community, because it's such a unique concept for them to actually bring them out, let them see the new Mass Effect graphics engine and all that, just for a simple marriage proposal kind of thing. I would understand if that was within Team, but the fact that you went out to a fan and did it, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I definitely think it kind of is reminiscent of when Gearbox put an NPC based on someone when somebody contacted Gearbox like, hey, my friend was a huge fan of Borderlands and he really loved these games. Would you mind putting an NPC in honor of him? And they did it. And there's kind of like two reasons I could see why they would agree to do it. One is that, hey, we want to show that we're not a monolithic company, especially with BioWare's case of saying, yeah, EA kind of made us leave bitter tastes in the fans of in our fans' mouth of Mass Effect 3. So let's try to basically show that, hey, we understand your fans. We want to prove that we're human. But it's also probably a case of, hey, this will also be really good publicity for our upcoming game.
Yeah, well, and it's not just that. It's just the way that they kind of looked at it. It's a good PR approach, but also just devs know that they're gamers too, and they know that when you want to do this unique stuff and they have the ability to do it, then they want to help out. And that's why I wholeheartedly like it because I didn't even know the Borderlands one. I didn't know Gearbox had put an NPC in just because I'm a fan.
Yeah, it was in a Fast Facts video where they said that basically someone wrote in saying, yeah, my friend died of cancer a while back, or it was like heart failure or something, and it basically said like, but he was a really huge fan of the Borderlands games, and so they put the NPC in. You could go in game and get a special item from the NPC. I'm not quite sure what it was. Again, I don't really play Borderlands, but I saw the story, and it was pretty interesting, and so. Yeah, it kind of reaffirms faith in the industry, faith in humanity a little bit, because it's just a case of, hey, we're humans too. We like to do this cool stuff too.
Yep. Alex, Aldo, what are your thoughts on this story?
I like it a lot. It actually reminds me a lot of several years ago when a couple people started doing ROM hacks to start doing wedding proposals. And you had like custom levels on like Earthbound or even like Secret Mario levels.
Or like that custom Chrono Trigger one that I've seen.
I was thinking about that.
Yeah. I think it's really cool, and I think it takes it a step above because it's from the official people, and I think that's actually something kind of cool.
And it is a good PR message, but I don't think that's the reason why BioWare did it.
I think the real reason here is somebody was trying to get a sneak peek at the game.
Exactly.
Well,
People wanted to see what it was about.
Yeah, but I also think the major reason is just also the fact that BioWare knows that fans were really angry with Mass Effect 3, and so they're kind of trying to get back into the fans' favor with stuff like this, because we know the ending and the stuff with Tali made you kind of angry at us, so here's something cool we did. Do you forgive us, please?
So basically what you're saying is that they are Bryan Singer with Days of Future Past.
Exactly. Except there's no molestation allegations yet.
Yeah. Oh, man. So, yeah, that's just another story that we can cover. The other one that I want to go into for I'm probably going to change these because I don't know if they're going to be like full-on hours now that we're not I mean, I want to clarify this to the people who are interested. It's not that we hate Radio SLCC. It's just that schedule didn't work out. And so
we all have
would love to
jobs,
work with them
people.
again. This is not going to work. So the other story of the tech agenda here is, and again, I'm alone in this, but I did want to bring it up. So people who are new will find this out very quickly. I am the only one who is a Blizzard fan amongst us. And
Pretty much.
Yeah.
pretty much. I mean, Aldo, you've admitted to playing StarCraft, and that's it. So that's
Pretty much, yeah.
I've tried getting Alex to start up Blizzard games, and he won't do it.
Trying to get me into WoW a number of years ago, never caught on.
Yeah, and the only Blizzard game I've played has been Blackthorn, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And even then, I never even finished it.
So let me kind of paint a picture for you guys, because this week was the launch of their next expansion, their 5th expansion for World of Warcraft. Now, obviously, you would want that, right? You'd want people to be able to get on the game, play it, and be able to level up their characters or whatnot. Well, somebody else had other thoughts in mind for that, and we actually had problems with a DDoS attack happening with the World of Warcraft servers. And oh my gosh, like I was in there, so that's kind of why this is in there too, as a story. Is I was there, and I can tell you it created chaos. We thought it was all Blizzard. You know, we thought it was the servers getting overwhelmed, and I mean, you literally had so to give kind of an example here, in this expansion we got access to what World of Warcraft would call player housing, and you get to manage your own base. Well, the base is basically established on an instanced server so that it can be unique to each player, right? Well, the problem was, because of the DDoS attack, you literally had people who were trying to fly into the base who were waiting in line, and then were just slowly getting kicked off the server. They weren't ever getting into they're called garrisons. They weren't ever able to get into them, and if you actually did fly to your garrison, it was pretty much guaranteed you were not going to get your character back for like 2 or 3 hours. That's how bad it got.
Wow.
So, right now, I just want to get people's thoughts around the table. This is obviously not a good thing for Blizzard. They've counteracted it, though. They've done maintenance each day, and it's worked so far, but obviously this is not something that anybody wants to happen.
Well, unless they're trying to specifically sabotage Blizzard, which basically it's either a group doing it for the lulz or trying to make some sort of statement or something. I'm just curious as to who was actually able to pull this off. I mean, I doubt it would be anybody like Anonymous, because this isn't their usual shtick. So
I've heard mixed. I've heard that it was actually a group that targeted Blizzard. I've heard that it was the gold farmers trying to get established, and that created a backup in the servers. I don't think they've announced what the full extent the attack was, but obviously they're not focused on trying to explain it. They're trying to focus on fixing it. And they're trying to get the servers up and running again. Thankfully, they're back up and running again, and in, I think, at least good standing. But the last couple of days, when you had literally a 2-hour queue to get into the game, that's a bit of a problem.
yeah.
Well, at least it's not as bad as a 136-year ban.
Indeed. Indeed.
That's true. I can see Blizzard getting out, but you know, that's the solid trolls.
Well, that's probably what's going to come to the people who caused the DDoS attack, though. I'll tell you that.
They'll probably get the banhammer, but I don't know how, to the extent of what they're going to do. But obviously, like, do we think that this is going to hurt them in the long run? I don't think it will, because they were able to fix it in the next. It wasn't Sony, where we had like a 5-month outage of the networks being down because of PSN being down because of the hackers. They were reacting fairly quickly, but I have seen a lot of people going on and just saying this is this is the last expansion because they don't even believe the DDoS attack. They think it was just Blizzard being stupid. I don't know if I necessarily believe that. We've had like 5 expansions. They've gotten wise about this stuff.
Yeah, and this is like their cash cow. It wouldn't make sense for them to be not prepared. So maybe when they had it launched, they probably had like a bunch of QA and like people, like systems analysts and stuff on hand in the event of something like this happening, which is probably why they were able to fix it so quickly. Because it's just a case of, well, we've got a new launch. A lot of people are probably going to be coming in to experience it. So let's have some people on hand to maintain the servers, maintain the computers, and try to keep this as smooth as possible. So that's probably why they were able to respond so quickly.
Well, and another thing I think also is, where they send out the key developers to go sign boxes and things like that. I do know, or at least I've heard, on the 9/11 expansion, it's basically a 24-hour shift for the server farm guys because they want to make sure that it's up and running. They want to make sure there are no problems, and if there are problems, to immediately fix them. That's just me, and oh my gosh, IGN hates me right now. I don't know why.
IGN hates all of us at this point.
Yes. So that's actually going to go ahead and cover it for the tech agenda here, but we actually... People might have noticed that we have Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions. So we've given the news and the opinions, but we actually do have some reviews to go over, so I'd actually like to go over them with the people here. We're actually going to start up with Aldo because he's been trying to get these reviews up for a couple of weeks now. Let's go ahead and go into Legend of Korra. Now, which console were you playing it on, Aldo?
I was playing on a PS3.
Okay. And what are your thoughts on Legend of Korra?
It's a $15 downloadable title by Platinum Games, and that's kind of the best description of it. Is you kind of get what you pay for from Platinum Games. So if you've ever played anything like Bayonetta or some of the other games they've done, they're very known for high action, high energy kind of just type of games. And Korra does that, but to a smaller, kind of lesser extent. It is very much like a step back as far as gaming goes, because you do have that same trope of here are these villains, or here's your enemy, and when you move on to the next level, here's that same enemy, but now they're red, and now they're blue, and now they're purple.
So basically, they take the Castlevania approach.
Yeah, pretty much, and the story is really lackluster. You can tell that none of the original writers were involved in it. And it's just it was a little disappointing as far as the story goes, because as a fan of Legend of Korra, as far as the Avatar series, you kind of come to expect a decent story at the bare minimum. And you don't even get that.
That's a little
cash grab license, it sounds like.
I mean, seriously, like, Platinum Games, I think, would actually be the perfect developer to do this, because you just mentioned the Bayonetta games.
Yeah, it was founded by Hideki Kamiya, the guy who created Devil May Cry.
Yeah, Devil May Cry is, and also, people might remember from the E3 stuff where I was totally going nuts about Platinum's Xbox One title, Scalebound. That's, and here's the thing, Korra Avatar, that's the perfect developer for them. So the fact that they don't measure up, that's a little disappointing to me, Aldo.
And it really is, and I feel like they could have an excellent Avatar game if it was a full budget game. Like if it was a $60 title and they had 2-year or 5-year development cycle for it, I think it'd be great.
Maybe even have the
yeah, and especially the writers. I mean, even if they just adapted the existing storyline, it'd be great. The story in here is that some old guy seals your powers away, so you have to unlock your bending powers. So that's actually kind of nice. I mean, the reasoning for it is dumb. It's so stupid. But the way the mechanic works is that you learn your elements again in the same order as the Avatar is supposed to. And it's really cool because as you learn your bending, your combos get really cool because you can switch your elements mid-combo just using your trigger buttons. So you could be fighting somebody with rock elements and switch to airbending right away.
Yeah, and that would make sense. I mean, that's what the series is like.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there is excellent balancing between the elements. Rock, like earthbending, it is kind of a slow, heavy, powerful attacks. Waterbending is really good for hitting enemies at a distance. Firebending is really quick and powerful at close combat. airbending is just really good for area control. So they got that right. There's just not a whole lot of it. It's about like a maybe 3-hour campaign with a lot of.
Even for a $15 game, that's pretty atrocious.
Yeah.
There is quite a bit of replayability because you do get to replay through the whole game with everything unlocked. So all your abilities, you get them from the beginning. So it is actually kind of a little bit more fun because you don't have those restrictions of only having the one element at a time unlocked.
Oh man, that's kind of disappointing. If it was Platinum that did Legend of Korra, oh my gosh, there's too much wrong there.
It's really bad because the story is bad, kind of the enemy and the actual challenges you get are not that great, and it's really disappointing because the actual combat mechanics are just really good. They're just really fantastic. They're really fun, but when you get enemies that don't take any damage and can knock out your health bar in 2 punches, that's not even a challenge. It's just pure unfair mechanics.
Yeah, and that's the stuff that gets Platinum yelled at. I mean, the perfect example that I can think of is like the new DMC where they did the DLC for Virgil. That sounds a lot like what they did there, and it didn't really feel like Virgil got a whole lot of thought into how he would be different from Dante, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And the other thing is that also once you beat the main story mode, it also has a pro bending mode. So if you've been watching Legend of Korra, you know that they have that pro bending sport.
Yeah.
And that's a fun little side game that you can do. And the biggest disappointment comes from that being a single player only thing. There's no online player for it. Yeah.
Ouch.
The perfect multiplayer opportunity. What the heck were they smoking?
They were probably rushed. From what Aldo's describing, this was probably a rush job.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's disappointing. So overall, Aldo, what would be your final verdict on Legend of Korra for PS3?
I give it a 5 out of 10, or like a 2.5, or on a 5 rating scale, maybe a 2. Just because it does cater to the fans. It does have a little bit of fan service, just very little of it.
Yeah.
The actual fighting and combat mechanics are actually really fun, and the second playthrough is a lot more fun than the first.
Okay.
Pro bending is a fun little side distraction, even if it is just offline.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the other review that you've had, and this one's I'm a little confused about. Lethal League? Is this supposed to be like Mutant League Football or something?
Not quite. It's a little bit kind of it's a party brawler, kind of in the same fashion of Smash Brothers. But it's different in that you don't attack your opponent directly.
Okay.
There is a baseball in the field that you can hit, and the point is to hit your opponents with that baseball. So the baseball kind of flies around the stage, and every time you hit it, it gains a little bit of speed. You can smash the ball, which is like a downward hit, and that'll double whatever speed it has. And so it'll bounce around the stage, and so the point of it is to kind of keep hitting it as much as you can, and for your opponents, for them to hit it and avoid it, and kind of turn it back on you.
Okay.
It's really cool because once you start playing it, it has this thing called player tagging, which means that when you hit it, you become immune to it. So you don't have to worry about getting into the way of the ball. But as you can also change the settings so that it has an always neutral ball. So when you hit it, if you get into the way of it and you don't hit it, it'll knock you out.
Okay. So what's the avenue that this is out? It sounds like a Steam release.
Yeah, it is a Steam release.
Okay. And what would it sounds to me like it's overall good for multiplayer?
Yeah, so it's a primarily multiplayer game. The campaign in it is really short. There's about, I think it's like a 5 or 6 character kind of regular arcade progression type thing.
Okay.
The multiplayer is actually really good. If you have online, it's actually really excellent. They're using the GPO system that Street Fighter 3 online uses.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
So there's very little lag, and the compensation for it is actually really good for it as well.
Okay. And so your final verdict for Lethal League?
I'll give this one a 7 out of 10.
Okay, yeah, it sounds to me like it's recommended for anybody who wants to just get in on a multiplayer game and have fun with friends.
Yeah,
So
no,
that might be, especially like if this thing goes on a Steam sale or something like that, that would be freaking awesome.
Yeah, they have it
I'd
on.
actually pick it up.
It's like $13, and they do have like a 4-pack as well, because it is a 4-player, four people multiplayer.
All right, very nice. Okay, let's go ahead and bust out the final review of the tech agenda here, and we'll probably have a little bit more entertainment time for you also, Alex. So you got your hands on Sonic Boom: Rise of Lyric.
Yeah.
Now, you didn't have a Wii U to do it.
No, I had to borrow yours.
Yes, you had to borrow mine. So I'm going to keep the other stuff, at least for the entertainment agenda here, because you've got some things to say.
Yeah.
Give us your thoughts on Rise of Lyric. Not necessarily just Sonic Boom as a whole, just is Rise of Lyric worth it on the Wii U?
This game is not worth $50. It's really not. Sega just, I don't know, that patience is not a virtue because this game is clearly a rush job. There are so many issues in this game right now. There's really bad frame rates. The mechanics can be a little screwy. The button combos can be a little unresponsive. The graphics are pretty subpar. They're really beneath even the Wii U. They pretty much are like PS2 era graphics. This game is... It was
PS2 era? For a Wii U title?
It's unbelievable, but yeah, and I think it's quite clear that this game was pushed out the door by Sega once again to meet up with the Sonic Boom cartoon series and try and meet up with their whole merchandising line because they had this whole big fuss out of it, and this game was not finished. As far as gameplay mechanic, of course, it's a very different kind of Sonic game. Well, that alone shouldn't be bad, but you can tell that Big Red Button has taken a lot, and I mean a lot of inspiration from their days at Naughty Dog, and probably applied a little too much into this game.
Okay, you're going to need to clarify here. How did they take their inspiration from Naughty Dog? Because, when people think Naughty Dog these days, they think Uncharted. Are you talking like the Jak and Daxter era?
Exactly like the Jak and Daxter era, because this game plays like a Jak and Daxter game or a Ratchet and Clank game. It's much more exploratory heavy. There's so much more emphasis on exploring. The hub worlds are giant, and that's another take, frankly confusing, and there is a lot of platforming. It's mostly platforming. Now, Sonic, of course, was born as a platforming game, so that in itself is not bad, but they really lack the speed element in this game, and the speed elements are very, very limited. They're really dull and boring. They're just limited to these short, 10-minute tracks. It's a very simple, curvy, straight line track. Occasionally you dodge obstacles. It's every criticism you've ever heard of Sonic ever: push right, jump occasionally. Or boost to win. That's what these speed sections are.
It sounds more like the same old from Sega. It's level design problems. It's the fact that this thing got rushed out the door to meet with a TV series when it probably would have gotten a lot more development time if it had just been its own thing. But maybe I'm getting this wrong from you, Alex. Is the biggest beef that you have with it just that you paid $50? Or, I mean, if it had been cheaper, would it have been worth it? Is that what you're saying here?
I mean, a lot of people are sort of describing this as the next Sonic 06. I don't think it's that level of bad. It's unfinished and it's unpolished, but it's not Sonic 06 broken. And this game is definitely not worth $50. It's not even worth $40, but ultimately, I'm disappointed because it feels like Sega still just hasn't learned their lesson from their mistakes in the past. The fact that this is another developer, which seemed encouraging at first, and fresh eyes on the franchise, maybe something they can do new. it just nothing. The game is pretty dull by itself. The hub worlds are too large. You don't get a map for maybe like a quarter into the game, more or less. I don't know. And the maps are really not helpful at all either. You don't have a radar screen. Most of the time, I'm just wandering around aimlessly trying to figure out how do I get to the next level? How do I get to the next action stage? And the action stages are almost entirely limited to these platforming sections. So there's, like I said, no speed in this game. Very little speed.
So it sounds to me like your final verdict is not promising.
Not promising. This is a bad game. I mean, if I have to screen out some positives, I like the 4-3. I can't count. I like the mechanic, the multi-character mechanic. Now this is it's a little like Sonic Heroes in that way, where you actually get to rotate through your whole roster of characters. You get to play Amy, you get to play Sonic, you get to play Knuckles, and you get to play Tails, and they all have their own unique abilities, and those are actually pretty fun. I love playing all through the whole roster of characters. But again, the problem is this game is just not polished. It lacks just anything good about it, really. It's kind of an overall boring game.
So, Alex, it sounds to me like we share a lot of the same complaints that I had with Korra that you have with this.
Yeah.
So, if your game had been a $15 downloadable title, do you think it would still be would it be worth it at that price point, or would it still not be worth it at that price point?
I'd say it'd be worth it at $15. I can't. Mostly, I expect more for Sonic, and I'm just wondering how hard is it to make a Sonic game these days? I see so many ROM hackers do it, and I can't. And it baffles me why Sega can't seem to grasp how to do it anymore.
Yeah, it's a real shame, especially after Lost World, because Lost World was actually a pretty good game.
Oh yeah, I wholeheartedly like Lost World.
But wasn't it because Lost World was pretty much backed by Nintendo all the way?
Yeah,
yes, and that's very clear with the Nintendo-based DLC.
Yeah, I think a lot of the problem is Sega. I think Sega constantly is trying to reinvent the wheel when it comes to Sonic the Hedgehog games. They feel like if they keep doing the same, or they keep going the old simple route, they're going to lose audiences. But I don't think they're going to lose audiences. It's worked for Mario. We've seen Mario do just fine in the 3D era for doing pretty much. Not all. I mean, it's not exactly the same, sure, but they do a lot of the same things in many Mario games. But they find ways to make it innovative and fresh, and I think Sega can too. Sega also just needs to learn patience. They shouldn't push these games out the door so fast.
No.
And
that's kind of the Sega problem, is that they really want to meet up with the hype.
Yeah, they take Gotta Go Fast way too seriously.
You took a word from
That's the problem. They take level design and just say, no, we just got to bust this out. You know, this is like a Mega Man game. No, it's not, especially when you're trying to get into a 3D landscape. Because it seems like ever since 3D, I'm one of those few that actually states Adventure and Adventure 2 were not bad games. They were
games.
Yeah, nobody really
step into the 3D landscape. It's everything after that it seems like, wait, you had something fairly solid. Why back away from that? Why lose that momentum?
Yeah, I think the great games that they had were basically Adventures 1 and 2 and Sonic Heroes, at least in my opinion. But then you get stuff like Shadow the Hedgehog, which tries to add stuff that just doesn't need to be added. I mean, playing through Shadow the Hedgehog, I did not need to use the guns. I just kept using the homing attack, and I got through it just fine.
I'm not super well versed in the Sonic franchise, but my favorite title so far was actually Generations.
Oh
because it stayed pretty tame and it actually stayed pretty true, but it feels like it grabbed the best out of Adventure and it grabbed the best out of the classics.
Well, that's the difference, is that it was an homage. It was a callback to what made Sonic great to the old school fans, as well as what made Sonic great to the new school fans, the Adventure fans. But I agree with you wholeheartedly, although I thought that was a really great game. In fact, there were DLC packs announced for it, and I was disappointed that nothing ever happened. But, I mean, Lost World is okay, and if if it means that we got to work with a little bit more Nintendo influence, maybe we ought to, because I don't think Sega knows what they're doing anymore. To be honest with you, Alex.
Sega just doesn't have a clue anymore. I'm convinced. I've been burned again, and I'm tired of Sega. You know, I gotta bring up this. There's one point in this game that I'm in a hovercraft and floating down a river. The perspective is randomly changed on you. It's a top-down. I'm having to constantly shoot at these turrets, which are shooting homing missiles. I have 3 weapons to choose from: a water cannon, an ice gun, and little rockets that go woo. They don't hold the rockets, and it took me many tries to get through that. It's like, I think you missed the memo, Big Red Button. Nobody liked the vehicles in Sonic 06 or Shadow the Hedgehog.
No, not when there's a franchise where people go fast. We don't want vehicles.
I think Yahtzee pretty much put it best is, why on earth is Sonic driving a car?
Yes. Absolute. Like, even in I get the Racer, the Mario Kart clone, I get that. But even then, I just kind of sat there and went, why is Sonic driving a car? Why isn't he just running? Because that's been his gimmick.
I think it's probably because they're just like, well, we don't want to create another Sonic R, so that's probably why they put him in a car.
I think the best.
Nobody wants them to create another Sonic R.
I really
They
feel
don't need
like
to make Sonic R. They have All Stars Racing, and All Stars Racing is badass, and I love that game. But
Yeah.
I just feel like All Stars Racing should have everybody in a car but Sonic.
Exactly. That's the problem, is that Sonic is like the one person you would think wouldn't need a car, that he would be able to keep up with cars. But-
maybe he's in the car because he doesn't want to go faster than everyone else. Maybe he's handicapping himself.
There you go.
Although I still wish they added Segata Sanshiro as one of the characters. That would have been awesome.
Oh, there are so many characters they left out of that. So
Also,
I've heard a sequel is coming, but
why can Mario beat Sonic in like the sprinting Olympic event? That's my other question.
Watch Matt Pat's video. Matt Pat kind of explains why.
Oh,
What?
Okay, I'll have to look that up.
Are you talking about how fast Sonic the Hedgehog is? That
Well,
video?
yeah, there was a comparison where he compared the speeds of Mario and Sonic, proving that Mario is actually faster.
I saw that video, but I
Oh, that's right, yeah,
question
yeah.
the logic in that, because he only compared a quarter of Green Hill Zone compared to all of World War I.
Well, yeah, but at least it backs up because of the sprite heights and everything, and plus Sonic has a few more frames of comparison, like with that building in Sonic Unleashed. But yeah, watch Matt Pat's video. It'll at least give you an idea of how fast Mario is compared to Sonic.
Yeah, I totally forgot about the Mario aspect to that video, but now that you mentioned it, I remember.
all right. Well, I think that's actually going to cover it for the.
One more thing, Adam. I gotta add this. Well, if there's one thing Sonic games are generally praised for, good or bad, it's the music. This music is really forgettable. It's absolutely forgettable. It's gotta be some of the most dull Sonic music you'll ever hear. The score this time is handled entirely by Richard Jacques. He's done a few other Sonic games in collaboration before, and he really tries to, I think, make it too cinematic and not game enough. He can't
So they're
seem
like-
to draw balance.
So they didn't bring groups like Crush 40 or any of those groups to do any of the music anymore?
Not for this one. It's just all the one English composer.
Yeah, because that was the same problem with Lost World as well with the music, is that they didn't have any of the major tracks that Sonic is known for. That's disappointing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't. If Sega steps away from their core of musicians who've been working on Sonic games since the Adventure series, you tell the music suffers and this suffers, and the cinematic orchestral score just, it doesn't work. I mean, it might put you in the moment for a bit, but it's ultimately something you're going to forget. You're not going to be remembering it like Live and Learn.
Or Escape from the City.
Or Escape from the City.
Yeah,
And
that's
Overall-
the one thing that a Sonic game can get right, and they got it wrong too. That's
yeah. I don't have confidence in Big Red Button for any future games, period. This
I don't
for their
think
first effort out of the gate, this was an abysmal failure for them.
Yeah, I think at that point they'll probably go back to the Lost World math and see what made that work, and and branch onto that. At least if Sega wants to have good Sonic games again.
I just want a proper Adventure 3 already. We had a pseudo really crappy.
They did, and we did an LP on it.
I want a proper one. Okay, Adventure 4 if you want to call it that. But
yeah, I think it's just more a case of we all want to pretend that Sonic 06 didn't exist, so that's why we're saying we're hoping for Adventure 3.
I'm thankfully repressing it.
I'm talking in an actual adventure engine. I'm a little tired of the Unleashed engine. The style they've been using for Sonic Unleashed. Even though I love Sonic Colors and Generations for what they are, but I do want to see a return to the just old school adventure style engine.
Okay. Well, I think that's going to go ahead and cover it for the tech. Thank you so much, Alex, for providing that sounds like scathing review of Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, as well as for Aldo for doing the Legend of Korra and Lethal League. Let's go ahead and get into the entertainment agenda here. So we have quite a few stories to go into that one, and I'm going to go ahead and let Aldo and Romney take over the first one and let Alex recover his rage a little bit before we get into his other.
Choking on my own rage here.
So apparently Disney made a very interesting announcement over the week. Aldo and Romney, do you want to go ahead and go over this a little bit?
So how about I start off, and
All
then Romney can once again tell me how all my hopes and dreams are dashed.
Just go ahead and start. I'll wait.
So the announcement was it was on a couple websites had report on it, but it came from one source. Was that Disney had announced an adaptation of a book called The Prince and the Treasure, which was a story about two princes that go to find a princess, and they fall in love with each other along the way, and so they're gay princes. And so the idea was that not Nintendo, that's done. That Disney was going to be making an adaptation of said book into a movie called Princess. That was supposed to be that story, and it was a big shocking thing about Disney creating the first openly gay characters and blah blah blah. And then Romney came in.
Well, actually, let me say it this way. I listened to your testimony, and there's only one thing I have to say. Objection!
I need an objection button, I really do.
Yes, unfortunately, the film is stated that to be slated for a release in 2015. However, if you look at the official release roster for Disney, the next film is not Princess, but rather Moana. Care to explain this discrepancy, Mr. Gomez?
Can I just get the Phoenix right, like Google effects, and just put here? I think Romney would have to be Phoenix, and then Aldo would have to be Edgeworth at this point.
No, he's Winston Payne. He's Winston Payne in this case.
Oh.
Dun, dun.
Oh, that's a little below the belt there, Romney.
If I played Phoenix right, I would understand what's going on.
Yeah, literally, the first thing I did when I saw him posting this is that I went to Google, and the first thing that came up was a little website by the name of Snopes.
All right, Aldo, your counter-argument.
I found it on a website called Amplifying Glass.
I love that this is true geek news, everybody, because we're disputing articles, and obviously this is the geek story site to go for this proper Disney story.
Which my favorite thing is when you go to the comments. I always avoid the comments because it's the internet. But the second comment for the article on this website called Amplifying Glass is are fake news sites blurring the line too much?
Yeah.
That's a pondering question.
Yeah, because one of the disclaimers they have on the homepage is that it is a satire site.
So let me just go into the fat here of this article. So we're basically going to get a Disney movie with two gay leads, and this is going to be adapted kind of like Disney movies do from some kind of a fairy tale. I have seen a little bit of controversy about it, obviously from the usual sources, and I guess what I would bring up to everybody here is this necessarily a bad thing? Because I'm not seeing a problem here.
Well,
I think
if it was
Disney was going to go here anyway.
Well,
if
Disney's
it
been trying
was
to
a
be.
real story, like if this was a real thing that was happening, I'd be all for it.
Yeah, and Disney's been trying to be progressive recently, because I remember there was that huge uproar of how in one of their Disney Channel sitcoms, one of the side characters has 2 moms, and people were getting in such a tizzy over that.
Yeah, you're talking about the ABC Family series, right? That had it was like,
Good Luck Charlie, I think.
Yeah,
oh,
But
okay.
ABC
I'm thinking
Family,
of another
Disney
one.
Channel.
ABC Family, Disney Channel, same diff.
No, ABC Family tends to be for the older crowd, and Disney Channel is more for the teen crowd.
And for the preachy crowd. Just saying. Because the one I'm thinking of is, I don't have any beef with it or anything like that, but it is fairly preachy.
Yeah, and so it's kind of the case of that people wouldn't
Lots of
necessarily put it
Fosters,
past
that's what it's
Disney
called.
because of the fact that it's been trying to be progressive.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm necessarily against this concept. Disney's going to go there. They've been openly supporting LGBT for a while now, so I don't see this as an issue. This is somewhere they're going to go. But I don't know. Aldo, your final thoughts on the matter, Alex?
If it was a real thing, it was going. I'd fully support it. My thought with Disney has always been they've never made a movie where I've thought that story was completely bad. There's movies that I might not like as much, like Maleficent is probably one of my least favorite Disney movies, but by all means, I still think
that's got to be my reaction, Romney.
yeah, I still think it's probably one of the better movies in the giant spectrum of movies that come out in a year.
Just wait. Now in 2015, we have Romney's gonna love this part. We have Cinderella to look forward to.
Yeah, but at least that one I'm looking forward to because they're not trying to reinvent the wheel, and it's a straightforward retelling of Cinderella, and it's being directed by Kenneth Branagh, which I'm really excited for. That's the guy who brought That's the guy who directed Thor.
Worried about it still, because with the way that they approached Maleficent, I'm afraid Disney's gonna be like, well, we need to change things up a little bit.
Well, Disney has gone on record saying that they're not going to try to basically change it. It's just going to be a straightforward retelling of Cinderella. They're not going to try to change any perspective or anything. They've gone on record saying that this is a straightforward fairy tale adaptation. And knowing Kenneth Branagh as a director, he probably will do a good job. Given how the first Thor movie did a pretty good job, I'm pretty excited for it.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get to the next story here. So we've talked plenty about the princes. So let's go ahead and get into the next story here, and that is I think it was it Aldo that brought this?
I was the one who brought it.
It was you. Okay. So apparently we're talking about actually making some legit Grimm fairy tale books just to bring kind of the original tellings of these stories to a kid's book?
Not so much a kid's book. It's that a professor in England who studies German literature decided to retranslate the first edition of the Grimm's fairy tales, and these are the editions that have it really dark, really disturbing. The versions of Cinderella where they cut off parts of their feet to get their foot into the slipper, and it's pretty much a case this professor decided to give a whole new translation to the first edition of the Grimm's fairy tales.
Okay, because the way that I've seen other stories kind of point this out is that they were looking to repurpose it for new demographics or whatever, and I'm like, wait, okay, I don't think that's going to work very well, but if they're just going to retranslate it, that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, the book's already out in England, and you can actually order it from the website that The Guardian links to.
Okay. I like that. Aldo, Alex, if you actually had the option, would you purchase these? I might, just for the heck of it, for story accuracy.
Yeah.
I might be curious enough to check it out.
Because, I mean, here's the thing. I'm not the biggest fan of, like, the Alice in Wonderland, the Madness Returns kind of thing, but I do like some of the original tellings of those stories. So if they did a retranslation, I'd probably purchase it. I don't know if I'd show my kids right off the bat. But
yeah, that's definitely kind of a case. You wouldn't want to show it. I'd collect it more just kind of as a nice little historical sampling, because I've got quite a few books that I collect for that reason. I mean, I've got Journey to the West right here on my shelf for that reason. So I definitely want to get it next chance I get. Problem is, it's only available in Europe. The website has things priced in pounds. Not sure what the exchange rate is. So I'm holding out hope that we're going to get that a U.S. publisher is going to pick it up for release, because it's only available.
Popular enough, we'll get it.
Yeah.
That's just going to be the bottom line of it. So yeah, there really isn't much to go off on for that. Let's actually go into the next one. This is a story from IGN, which is, I don't know what I think of this, to be honest with people. So DreamWorks and Hasbro have been in talks for a while about doing a merger to come together to do a solid kids company. I'm assuming it's basically to take the toy effort and the movie effort and merge them more properly to make sure that they both get money in the matter. But I guess my biggest problem with this would be who would be in charge.
Yeah, that's
because who's the bigger moneymaker?
Yeah, it's like, is it going to be under the sway of Katzenberg, or is it going to be under the sway of whoever's the head of Hasbro? It seems very wary. And alternatively, are they going to try to mimic something similar to when Disney bought Marvel, where they're just a case of, we just work for the same, where you're basically the same company, but we're going to leave each other alone and only occasionally work together? I'm wary. I'm wary a little bit. But then again, if
Hasbro's involved, probably not.
Well, yeah, but if it means that we'll actually get some decent movies based on Hasbro properties, I mean, we've all seen the G.I. Joes. I mean, they made frickin' Battleship. I mean, if DreamWorks working on it means we'll actually get some good movies, like a good G.I. Joe movie, a good My Little Pony movie, and what other properties that Hasbro has, or even if it'll mean that we'll probably get some adaptations of some of the Takata properties, since that's Hasbro's partner company in Japan, I can kind of see the merger working out, but I'm cautious.
Yeah, I mean, I could see big properties like, the first thing that came to my mind was obviously Hasbro has Transformers. So at that point, could we actually be looking at like a legit CG Transformers, probably based off the Prime series? I think that would be likely. Or in a lot of cases, what you might see is taking some of those DreamWorks properties and maybe seeing if we can embellish on them a little bit. Like we had How to Train Your Dragon 2 come out recently this year, so maybe do a whole toy line to get people excited for How to Train Your Dragon 3.
Yeah, that, and they've also have the Kung Fu Panda television series as well that they could probably get a lot of merchandising for.
Kung Fu Panda would be a big one, I think, but I think the main thing that they're talking about, at least in the story, is creating new properties that both companies could gain something from. So at that point, something that could make a toy line, but also have like a decent set of movies that DreamWorks could develop.
Yeah, like maybe they could even try resurrecting Rise of the Guardians. Come to think of it, because that would be a good thing to try to give a better shot. Because that film was gorgeous, it looked really good. It just didn't get a lot of the attention. It just didn't have a lot of the backing. So if Hasbro wanted to do something with that franchise, either having it become a TV series on the Hub network or doing something with that concept, I'd be for it.
I think Hub would be a guarantee. It would have to go to the Hub. You brought up G.I. Joe. I know Renegades did really well on the Hub, so at that point you could probably do like a more serious G.I. Joe movie based off of Renegades. The one thing I don't want to see, and I might get smacked around for this, I get why people like the My Little Pony on Hub, but no, I don't want a Brony movie.
Well, I can understand that. I mean, we already have quite a few like direct-to-video movies that have come out, and and a lot of people have rumored that they're going to try giving My Little Pony the same treatment that they gave the live-action Transformers, which I don't even get how. No. I mean, I can't even see straight face talking about it.
No, it just can't work. I mean, I just barely saw. I didn't even realize that they were doing this, but I think it's actually the Hub that's doing it. Rainbow Bright is now getting rebooted.
Yeah, and I know they were going to try to reboot Care Bears as well.
Oh, Care Bears has been rebooted again and again. They'll come back. I'm just waiting for the inevitable day that the Care Bears basically become Barney.
Aren't they already kind of like that, though?
They are, but like I'm talking legit PBS funding kind of thing. Like Care Bears is owned by PBS.
I doubt that, because it is Hasbro. If there's toys being sold, that's pretty much what it comes down to, is will it help sell more toys?
Even the Sesame Street is a toy line.
Aldo, you've been fairly quiet. It sounds to me like you're worried about this.
I'm not that worried about it. I'm just not the biggest fan of My Little Pony, and I get what it's achieved, and I get that it's such a community-driven thing, but I just tune out once the words My Little Pony comes up.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, this is just Hasbro in general.
No, exactly, and it'd be nice to get like a proper line of like Transformers figures again and everything if they're based off of a franchise that respects them a little bit more.
Yeah.
Possibly.
And that's kind of what I would like to see again. Would be kind of not so much decent toys, just respect to the franchise and respect to the characters and the stories. That's kind of it.
So what you're basically saying is that Michael Bay shouldn't have Transformers?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Okay, I'm good with this.
Yeah, though there is one Hasbro property. It's technically a Takata property, but given that Takata is the Japanese partner company of Hasbro, it's one property I would definitely like to see given a chance here in the US, and that would probably have to be Madan Senki Ryukendo. It's a tokusatsu series from Japan, and given that we've got the Power Rangers reboot on the way, I wouldn't be surprised if DreamWorks and Hasbro decide to pull on that property a little bit so they can kind of have something to jump on the success of the Power Rangers reboot or to even counter it a little bit.
Well, I mean, in a lot of cases, you could take the inspirations for Power Rangers. You could do, I don't even want to bring this up, but I mean, you could go Voltron reboot. You could do...
Well, does Hasbro own Voltron? Because I'm not sure if they do.
Hasbro might. I think they had the rights to the toys. I'm not sure about the video rights anymore because Nickelodeon made the series.
Well, Nickelodeon didn't make the series. It was called the company's called WEP, and that opens up a separate can of worms since Toei has the rights to the original Hyakuju o Go Lion series. So.
Not the series that was edited out of Macross. Or
No.
Something else.
No, Macross. That was what Robotech is.
That was Robotech.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's Harmony Gold.
Yeah, they tried. The idea behind Voltron is that they were trying to recreate Robotech with different mecha series, but literally because of a mistranslation, they got sent the wrong anime. But they found that was actually a lot more popular with audiences, and so they stuck with Voltron.
Yeah. So, I mean, overall, I don't think this is gonna. This actually sounds to me like a good thing for both DreamWorks and Hasbro, because then at that point they can boost the series that they have, but then they can create new ones for new toy lines and for new inspirations and all that. So I don't think this is going to be a bad thing for either of them, but right now it's just secret talks. So, and at that point, the biggest question that I would have is, again, who would be in charge?
Yeah.
Because it sounds to me like Hasbro would probably be in charge, and that might not be the best thing for DreamWorks.
Indeed, and they haven't been. DreamWorks hasn't been doing that well the past while. I mean, How to Train Your Dragon 2 didn't do that well at the box office. Rise of the Guardians tanked. I mean, they had to reshift the new film Home to come out after Penguins of Madagascar. So it's kind of all up in the air for DreamWorks in this case.
But then again, it's not necessarily a lack of quality, because the Dragons franchise isn't a bad franchise per se, and Rise of the Guardians wasn't, at least in my opinion, wasn't like a bad movie. I think they just don't know how to handle advertising.
So
Yeah.
is this supposed to be between DreamWorks or DreamWorks Animation?
DreamWorks
kind of
and Hasbro.
Yeah, I'm guessing it would encompass kind of the whole thing, because although DreamWorks Animation has a deal with Fox, I'm guessing the merger would pretty much apply to DreamWorks as a whole.
Probably.
I'm pretty sure DreamWorks Animation is split from its parent, from the company that Spielberg Katzenberg established years ago. I think it's its own thing now, isn't it?
Nah, I'm pretty sure it's part of DreamWorks proper, because that just wouldn't make a lot of sense.
No, I think it's part of DreamWorks proper.
Yeah, because if they split off, they'd have to change their name.
But I also kind of want to get back to Aldo's point, is I kind of get where Aldo's talking, where the Dragon series is actually a really good concept. What I actually think has been ultimately, and this is me just smoking crack here, has been DreamWorks' downfall is that they send out the license to create these TV series, and where these movies were epic and really looked good, the TV series are kind of subpar. It's really disappointing. Because I remember, like, I'm a big Kung Fu Panda fan and How to Train Your Dragon fan, so obviously when they had series announced, I tuned in and I checked them out, and I was just disappointed. It's like, this is not as epic as I thought it would be from DreamWorks. If anything, it's like the Christmas specials with Shrek.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you outsource your series to India, so...
Yeah. So let's go ahead and get into the last story of the entertainment agenda before we get into the review. This one is just a silly one because I can't even believe this is happening, but apparently it is. We're talking Legos again, boys and girls, because
everything is awesome.
Everything is awesome, and everything is cool when you're part of a team. Apparently Lego is going to be doing a set for the Big Bang Theory. No. Could you do that again, Romney, please? I don't think people got the impression. So, yeah.
Why is this show popular?
I don't get it either.
I like it, but I just don't see a Lego set.
Yeah, and it's just not one of Chuck Lorre's best shows, in my opinion, at least compared to the other sitcoms, because it lacks one of the fundamental elements for his sitcoms. But before I go on the tirade, let's continue with the story.
I actually like Big Bang Theory, but that's just me.
I'm got you.
I like Big Bang Theory. I think it's worthwhile as a series, and it is entertaining, considering I'm not a big sitcom fan. But right now, the set hasn't gotten too much out of it. Right now, the only thing they're debuting is that they are going to do the main apartment set in a Lego set for Big Bang Theory, which really is the only thing I can think of you could do, aside from maybe the comic book store or Penny's apartment. I don't see them being able to go too much farther than that.
Well, unless they recreate the moment where one of the nerds accidentally destroys the Mars rover.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like I think it was like the British one was trying to impress a date, and so he let her pilot the rover and ended up destroying it or something.
Yes, or the other one.
She's Jewish, I think.
The other one that you could go into is the big development on Howard Wolowitz making the first ever space toilet. You could actually make the International Space Station with the space toilet.
Yeah, or just have the scene of Sheldon facing off against Neil deGrasse Tyson. Mainly because I want a Neil deGrasse Tyson Lego.
I think we got to do that. Oh, creepy eyes! Creepy eyes!
Yeah, Polnareff wanted to get in on the action, apparently.
So the other thing that actually also kind of got hinted from the Big Bang Theory announcement was actually somebody asked, are you ever going to do a series or a Lego set based off of sci-fi series? And the one that they set in as an example was Doctor Who. And the Lego people obviously said, well, that would be an interesting concept. We haven't really delved too much into it, but it might be something we want to do. And that just made me kind of think, I mean, that's a missed opportunity. They did Star Wars, but we've never had like a Lego Star Trek. We've never had a Lego Doctor Who. We've never hit any really of the... I mean, you could probably even do Lego X-Files if you wanted to.
Yeah, and I mean, there was like the petitions a while back to do a Legend of Zelda Lego series that somebody designed and was trying to get made, so...
Yeah, but I remember Nintendo not being too happy about that.
But
yeah.
Then again, they have done like Back to the Future, and they have done like Ghostbusters. I don't think it's necessarily a lack of trying. I think it is more of a licensing issue, kind of like the Zelda thing.
Yeah, but at this point, I mean, who would like for Doctor who would you talk to? BBC?
Yeah.
So, and I guess the other thing, I'm not a Doctor Who fan, so the Doctor Who fans can probably clarify this for me. What Lego sets could we get? I mean, you could get a Lego TARDIS, but I can't really think of anything else.
No, they travel around so much, but I think what you would do more than anything would be a set of minifigs of the multiple Doctors.
Yeah.
And the companions.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's probably some set pieces they could do from across the series, especially if they go from the classic Who series to the current new series. I mean, they probably could do a set based on Skaro with the Daleks.
That was one of the things that I actually thought about, was like a Technic version of a Dalek that you could operate. But...
Yeah. I mean, they have a Lego R2 you can operate, so I wouldn't put it past them.
I think it'd be cool for them to make like a TARDIS that's a little big, so it's kind of like a showpiece that literally opens up all 4 walls and makes just one giant wall or 2 giant walls to make, the inside of the actual TARDIS.
Yeah, you could do that. Like I said, I mean, I would like to see some legit sci-fi properties get done with it. And the other thing also I'd like to see is Traveler's Tales get integrated into that. I mean, we obviously just had Lego Batman 3 come out, and they're apparently hinting at Lego Jurassic Park being the next Lego game.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, like, kind of going back to the fact that they have done, you know, a Ghostbusters and a Back to the Future one, is I don't necessarily think you need a locale. Those sets did kind of well with just the cars, or just the kind of just the one office for the Ghostbusters and things like that. So I don't think you really need to do like a giant big set for them, like you do like you do for the Turtles, where you have their sewer hanging out.
Yeah, you don't need to do anything like that. I mean, for like Marvel or DC, it makes sense to have, you know, big things like Stark Tower or the Fortress of Solitude kind of thing. But for Back to the Future, really the DeLorean is what you need. For Doctor Who, the TARDIS is the most identifiable icon of the series, at least to my knowledge.
Well,
Even with Star Trek, all you need to do is a Lego Enterprise. That's it.
Yeah, and with the TARDIS, you'd have the added benefit of being able to build like different interiors modeled after the different versions of the interiors for each of the different Doctors.
That's true, and maybe you can make sets off of that. But I that pretty much covers the stories of the entertainment agenda. Let's actually go ahead and get into the reviews for this portion. And the first one I want to actually start on, because I think all of us have seen it, and I want to go into it a little bit, is Christopher Nolan's Interstellar.
I haven't actually seen it.
Oh no!
I have not seen it.
Oh no! Oh gosh! Maybe we'll have to hold this off until, because I don't want to spoil it for people. Me and Alex obviously did see it.
I'm actually not going to go watch it.
I do recommend it to people. It really is a nice little homage to 2001: A Space Odyssey. I actually think it's this generation's 2001, basically.
That's a pretty big claim, so I'll have to watch it and get back to you on that.
You are praising this movie more than I've seen other critics even willing to say.
Well, I mean, if people want to actually go to the video review that me and Alex did, I was kind of 50-50 with it. I had things I liked, and I had things I legitimately hated. But it's one of those things where a good film knows how to balance that properly, and that's where I think Interstellar succeeds. I'm not saying it's the greatest thing ever, but it does at least deserve some level of respect.
I say it's easily best of the year.
It might be, but I'm holding out until we get Hobbit and Mockingjay. Stuff. Yeah, that's kind of my reaction to it. Okay, then we'll hold off on Interstellar, because I really do want to get Romney in on that to see what he thinks of it. Let's go ahead and get into... Aldo has been busy, and he's actually seen a movie that none of us have.
Looking at the agenda, I saw it too.
Yeah, I was going to say. Okay. I thought that
you were arranging to see
inverse.
No, I thought that's the movie we all watched.
Yeah, same here.
No, and that's just because I want to point to the person who wanted to see Interstellar more than Big Hero 6.
You're pointing, but it doesn't work.
You're pointing out into space.
Well, it really doesn't. Highlight right here. Smile for the camera. Yeah, you're the one that wanted to see Interstellar, so that's why we didn't see.
I wanted to get the long one over with. I mean, we probably would have seen it by now if I just didn't get the flu a week ago.
That's true. If you didn't get the zombie plague, we could have gone. We really could have. But you had to get your zombie plague.
I feel like you might not have made the wisest decision.
Yeah, you chose the wrong cup.
Well, then in that case, Aldo and Romney, convince me.
Well, should I start or should you start?
You're the critic. Let's let you do it.
Let's let Romney's reviews actually happen. We're doing
All
it.
right.
We're doing it live.
Okay, well, best way to put it, this is basically what you would get if you decided to combine The Incredibles with Speed Racer. I mean, a lot of people saying, oh, it's like the Avengers. Personally, the biggest thing I have to say is that don't go into this film expecting a Marvel movie. Yeah, it's based on a Marvel property. Yes, it has the obligatory Stan Lee cameo, but it's not a Marvel movie, and I actually kind of find that refreshing. It's not trying to start some big cinematic universe. It's just telling a well-crafted, well-developed story with well-written characters. And it actually has some surprising depth to it because of just how straight-up dark the film gets.
Really? And this is a Pixar property, so that's...
No, this isn't Pixar. This is Disney Animation. This is
that's
in-house.
right. Disney Animation.
Which, I mean, at this point, the line's kind of blurring, but still.
Yeah. Just a little bit. But, so, we've got Romney's thoughts on it. Aldo, what are your thoughts on Big Hero 6?
I actually wanted to see more of the actual Big Hero 6. I can, like, if you watch Romney's actual review on it, he actually makes a point of, he actually says the same thing I thought was, I can understand why in Japan it's just called Baymax rather than Big Hero 6. Because Baymax is a lot of the focus, but...
Yeah, specifically the relationship between Hiro and Baymax, that's kind of the main driving focus of the story.
But I do have to say that my favorite thing about Baymax isn't so much his relationship with him. It's the fact that he learns and he adapts to all these social norms and these languages and all these things that he does for Hero. And but the thing that I love about the movie is that it never asks the question, is he human? Is he evolving? Does he have a soul? He's just this completely lovable character that never even comes into question. You just accept Baymax kind of like as he is, and that's kind of for the best. That's kind of the thing I love about him. Okay. Is he's like Olaf, except not annoying and actually good for the plot.
Yeah, I'd kind of probably compare him more or less to something like Totoro when you think about it, because he's kind of got that same like lovable, huggable appeal to it. But it's also just kind of the case that it's not trying to force you to like Baymax. It's just saying, well, this is what he does, and that's it.
He is actually just a completely honest character. Like, if I was going to describe him in one word, it would be just that, honest. Because that's kind of what he is.
Yeah.
He does everything because his programming, not because of what he thinks, but because his programming tells him that that's what he should do. And he does it.
Okay.
But otherwise, the action sequences, I actually really enjoy the action sequences. I like how the team kind of joins together and everything. And I think the really cool, kind of important thing about this is that nobody's special just because they're special. Like, well, with the exception of Fred.
Yeah, but he's special in a different sense.
Exactly. But like, so all these characters are rewarded for being smart and for being, intelligent and for having worked hard for their things. And I think that's actually really cool. Was that you get a whole bunch of nerds, and at the end of the day, they stay nerds.
Very nice. Okay. Well, this definitely sounds like something that people need to pick up, and I don't know. I'm still kind of. I want to see Big Hero 6, but I also think that if people are interested, they should try out Interstellar. But I do know that me and Alex have that up on the agenda next, and we're not getting out of that one. It's not happening.
I want to see Big Hero 6, I do.
Yes, I do too. Why didn't we see it first?
Apparently not enough.
Because Interstellar's 3 hours long. And I figured, I got a Friday night. Well, I better seize the day.
I love Big Hero 6.
59 minutes, but okay.
Yeah, one thing I'm hoping that'll come out of the success of Big Hero 6 is there's another Marvel property that I think would be incredible as a Disney film, and that would be Power Pack. I really hope they decide to do a Power Pack movie.
I actually think if they wanted to take a little bit of a more teenage rather than like a child based storylines, I would actually love to see them do like kind of the Runaways. I think the Runaways would be a really good Disney Marvel property, but they would have to exclude the whole mention of them being mutants.
Well, yeah, and that you'd also have to try to establish the Young Avengers as well, which goes into a lot of major issues, especially since they're barely establishing Ultron and Vision in Avengers 2.
Especially since they're
standalone. I think just standalone. The ones I just said, the Runaways I would just personally just enjoy that myself because of the relationships and just because of that. I really, if you haven't read them, I recommend the Brian K. Vaughan books.
Yeah, but I think that Disney probably would avoid Runaways. I mean, if you look at like the Princes issue we discussed earlier, with some of the relationships in Runaways, I don't think Disney would want to try doing that as a Disney animated property. I mean, as part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they'd want to do that, but with Power Pack, I'm specifically thinking as a Disney animated film, kind of like what they did with Big Hero 6, where they separate it out from Marvel and just take the basic concept and just tell their own unique story with it. And Power Pack would be almost perfect for that.
That's kind of what I'm saying as well, because if there's so many differences between Big Hero 6, the comic, and the actual movies. If you have a chance to read like the most recent 6-issue series of Big Hero 6, it is nothing like the movie. It is pretty much nothing. Baymax is a giant mech bodyguard that walks around, and Hero is kind of like
Marvel did like nothing to actually promote this film, which a lot of people are thinking was a mistake.
All I have to say on the matter is very simple. As long as I get my Incredibles 2, and I get my Wreck-It Ralph 2, I don't care.
I could
might want
Wreck-It Ralph 2.
I don't know. But, you know, I like the idea of doing things like the Runaways as animated films from Disney or Pixar, but I really just want those two. I'm sorry, Aldo. I really do. I want that too, but heck, I want to hear Pixar actually say that they are going to do Overwatch the movie, because they should after that last week.
I feel like Blizzard should just say we're canceling the Warcraft movie to come out with Overwatch the movie.
You might as well, because I mean that was one of the other things that people wanted me to talk about, and there's nothing to talk about. I watched the presentation for it, and it was pointless. We got two posters out of it. We got some minor footage. We didn't get a legit trailer. We got some actor announcements, and that's it. And by the way, Romney, Depp is nowhere near it. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It's like all relatively unknown people.
I see. Well, maybe he probably backed out, probably because it's going to be competing directly with Pirates 5. So.
Truth be told, dude, my honest assessment of it is, Depp is probably too high budget for it.
Yeah.
Because when you have people like Ben Foster getting brought in, yeah, I don't think Duncan Jones has the budget to bring in a big guy like Depp, especially given a lot of the stuff that I've seen with the panel. They have spent so much in set design and weapons development and things like that. I don't think you can bring in a big actor.
Really? Because I remember that was like a big major news story a while back, but then again, things happen.
Yeah. So that actually is going to go ahead and wrap things up. I'm glad that people liked Big Hero 6. We're going to go see it, so obviously I'm excited about that. And obviously I'm also looking at the clock, and it's really late at this point.
Yeah, so, it's almost 1.
It's almost 1, yeah, because we had a bit of a late start time. So in the meantime, let's go ahead and wrap things up. If people want to get a hold of the individual panelists, Aldo, how do they get a hold of you and give you your feedback on Big Hero 6 or whether or not Legend of Korra was the greatest game ever?
You can always get on my website, boardoffline.net. I'm also on YouTube at boardoffline, youtube.com/boardoffline, also youtube.com/boardofflinegaming, as well as youtube.com/anime-overdub. ES. You can also find me on Twitter at Aldo531.
All right, and then the Shadow Blazer himself. Now Aldo is. I've seen a lot of the stuff with Anime Overdub, and I'm still waiting for you to actually put out the movie review idea you had. Well, the one that we did with the Turtles. I don't know what happened.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, dude, that'd be such a great idea, and you should do that for all the upcoming movies, and nothing happened. What the crap? But yeah, people should check out Aldo. I do love his game reviews, as well as Anime Overdub does make me giggle, even though the anime series make me want to facepalm.
Pretty bad.
So, Alex, the Shadow Blazer, how do people get a hold of you?
Well, you can find me here at youtube.com. My screen name, as you know, is ShadowBlazer3000. I talk about anime mostly. I'll talk about a few other things here and there, but you can also find me at Facebook. My name is Short. You can find me at Twitter. My handle there is AlexJShort. And I think I've covered all the social media bases. There's actually one thing I forgot to mention earlier, and that is Sega, once again being boneheads, actually withheld review copies of Sonic Boom. They did not screen this for critics, and when companies do that, be it in film or games, that's always a red flag.
Yeah.
You mean like the Unity embargo?
All right, and here is the main event for people who are new to this. We get to watch Romney do his, and get your stopwatches ready, because he likes to do it and break his record. So, Romney, go ahead.
Alrighty then. You can always find me on YouTube at youtube.com/StudioPhantasma, and that's Phantasma with an F. You can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Romney'sReviews, no apostrophe. You can also find me on MoviePilot at moviepilot.com/ROMNE, and if you want to ask me questions directly, I will do my best to answer them. You can do so at spring.me/AskRomney.
And then, actually lost track of it. Was it Big Hero 6 that was the most recent one?
Well, actually, I recently uploaded a review of The Tale of Princess Kaguya to my YouTube channel earlier today.
And then, Alex, you actually put up a recent video, too, because I think we showcased Angel Beats last time, but you've put up another one, I think.
Yeah, I reviewed Wolf Children.
Okay.
I was watching your review. I actually agree with you quite a bit.
All right, and then if people want to get a hold of the show directly, they can do it 3 ways. One, you can go to geekyweek@gmail.com and leave your feedback on the show, as well as stories you'd like us to cover, or any improvements that you might have, or constructive criticism that you have for the show. We would love to hear you. You can also go to Twitter. You can go to the Tweeter, and it is geekynrp. Shut up, Aldo. I know that I got that wrong. I'll try and fix it eventually, but it is twitter.com/geekynrp. You can also go to Facebook and look up Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions and like it, and then you will get updates on when we are going to be going live. Right now we are looking at Saturday nights from 10 p.m. So at that point, if we change the schedule, we will definitely put it up on the Facebook, under Facebook, and let you guys know. Also, if people want to get a hold of me directly, I'm your host, Adam Mickelson, also known as Drak2326 on YouTube. That's DRAK2326. My Twitter is under the same handle. And also, if you want to watch past episodes of Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions, you can do so on the Drak2326 channel. If they get popular enough, who knows, we might actually add another channel, and the creepy eyes will stare into your soul there. But I think that's going to cover it. So, for me, for Aldo, for Romney, and for Alex, we'll see you guys next time for more Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions.